Of the best in fantasy football in 2025 right now on Fantasy Football Today Express. Let's find out the all fantasy team for last season. It's still this season? I don't even know. It's 2026, but we're talking 2025. I'm so confused. I'm Adam Aizer with Jamey Eisenberg. All right, Jamey, who is the quarterback of the all fantasy team?
It was probably the toughest decision to make because I think kind of everything else fell in line with the running backs, wide receivers, and the tight end is very easy. But I gave it to Josh Allen. We sort of look at this and say, okay, who was the best value? Who performed? Sort of outside of the expectation level. But sometimes you got to look and say, who was the rock of this position or a position and lived up to expectations? And really, when you look at it, Josh Allen was the only quarterback, whether due to injury and performance, that lived up to the hype. Because Lamar Jackson did not, Joe Burrow did not, Jaden Daniels did not. Those were kind of the consensus top four. So as great as Matthew Stafford was, as great as Drake May was, I think those are the other guys you'd look at. Josh Allen delivered and, was pretty solid once again for fantasy managers. Some up and down performances and not his best season, but good enough that if you drafted him early, you got pretty good return on investment.
I must say, vehemently disagree with this decision because I won't even look at full season, right? Because Allen barely played in week 18, hurt his points per game average again. Same thing happened last year. So weeks 1 through 17, he scored 7 more fantasy points than Matthew Stafford. And he was, a second round pick. Compared to Stafford, it was a waiver wire pickup. It's got to be Stafford, Jamey. Come on.
So, again, I also take into account, were these guys consistently started? And Stafford was not consistently started by comparison to even Drake May. So.
Fine, whatever. All right, who are the running backs? Who are the two running backs?
Sometimes you got to reward greatness, and that's the case for the running backs too. So, the fantasy MVP for me was Christian McCaffrey. I know we'll reveal our superlatives from an audience standpoint on Wednesday, but McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson, and this was another tough call. So I have the flex for this team also as Jonathan Taylor if you want to just factor in all the running backs. McCaffrey led all non-quarterbacks in PPR points per game. He was awesome once again. A little surprised that in the Associated Press All-Pro team that Bijan Robinson was the running back and McCaffrey was the all-purpose player. I think it is the category they gave him. But these two guys were just special. Jahmyr Gibbs also had a fantastic season. He was tough to keep off the first team list. But McCaffrey was an easy choice for me. Bijan Robinson, I think, again, especially when you factor in his playoff performance, his finishing kick was amazing. And then Jonathan Taylor, I know he didn't finish the way that I think a lot of people hoped, but that start of the season was just unbelievable how dominant he was. So McCaffrey, Robinson, and then Jonathan Taylor at flex.
Yeah. Taylor's interesting one just because he was so disappointing down the stretch when his fantasy managers needed him the most. He had a couple of okay games, weeks 16 and 17. He scored 16.9 and 17.4 fantasy points. So I think that kind of saves him a little bit, right? It's not great. Didn't win you your week, didn't lose you the week. But man, weeks 12 through 17 overall were pretty rough. I don't know who else. I think you got the running backs right. Maybe if there was going to be another running back, maybe Cook or Achane or Gibbs over Taylor. But Gibbs also really let managers down
exactly.
in the playoffs. Really,
I'll tell you what, when I first did this, I think it was like week 16. Week 15. I started to put the list together just to get an idea. Mm-hmm. And Gibbs was ahead of Bijan. It was hard to just deny Jonathan Taylor. The way, he was so good at the beginning part of the season. It's just, you got to, again, look at the full body of work. So if this was just like a playoff performance, playoff team, all playoff team, I don't think Jonathan Taylor qualifies. But in the case of the full body of work, he was just unbelievable.
Yeah, he was. Okay, we'll take a break, give you the wide receivers and the tight end after this. We got 3 wide receivers for this squad. And who are they, Jamey?
Yeah, pretty easy. Puka, Nacua, and Jaxon Smith-Njigba, I think, are clear, obvious choices. Puka was just amazing, led all wide receivers in receiving, in catches and yards. Dominant campaign for him. And then JSN tailed off a little bit toward the end. He looked like he was trending toward a record-breaking season. I think at one point he was on pace to beat Calvin Johnson's single-season record for receiving yards. But just, finished those 2 guys, only 2 receivers. There were 7 players, non-quarterbacks, that were over 20 PPR points per game for the year. Those are the only 2 receivers to do it, Puka, Nacua, and JSN. So Easy choices there. And then Jamar Chase is the third receiver for me. Finished with just over 18 PPR points per game, so not as good as he was the previous year, but the expectations were probably a little bit too out of this world when he was the Triple Crown winner, led all receivers in catches, yards, receiving touchdowns in 2024. But still a very solid campaign in 2025. And again, you look at the numbers with Joe Burrow, without Joe Burrow, clearly factor that in. But Jamar Chase, the number 3 receiver. So Nacua, JSN, Jamar Chase, I think easy choices for that first team nomination.
Okay, fine. I'll just to be different, I'll take Chase out and I'll put Chris Olave in because you've got all that draft value, right? You know, being whatever he was, 8th round pick. And man, fantasy playoffs for Chris Olave, 20.5 fantasy points against Carolina, 36.8 against the Jets, 25.9 at Tennessee. I think he won people a lot of championships if they got there with Chris Olave. And he ended up as the number 7 wide receiver per game. Pretty amazing considering where he was drafted.
So just for, and you know, anybody did not read the story on the site, which has been up since week 18. I do a first team, second team, and third team. And so for your gripes, Adam, the second team quarterback is Matthew Stafford. The second team running backs are Jahmyr Gibbs and Devon Achane. The flex is James Cook. And the 3 receivers are Chris Olave, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and George Pickens, with George Kittle at tight end.
Yeah, Jamie, if you remember when the Dream Team lost to the college kids who were scrimmaging against them, I like the second team. I'll take the second team against your first teamers.
Okay.
All right. Gee, who's the tight end? I wonder.
You know, it was a tough call. You know, I was considering Austin Hooper for his heroics. No, it was Trey McBride. Just absolutely crushed the field. Over 100 PPR points more than the number 2 tight end, which was Kyle Pitts. Over 3 points per game more than the number 2 guy in terms of points per game. It was just an absolutely fantastic season for him. Very curious to see what the Cardinals do at quarterback going into next year. Jacoby Brissett is actually under contract through 2026. So he could be the bridge quarterback to whatever they decide to do. I just hope it's not Kyler Murray. Like, I hope the new coach doesn't come in and says, "Oh, I can make Murray work," and then we're back to dealing with a very good Trey McBride, just not an elite Trey McBride. Like, we saw the best of what he can be, and that's why we're talking about him as a potential first-round pick this year.
Okay, trying to find the last time a tight end finished. Has a tight end ever finished so far ahead of tight end 2 in fantasy history? I'm at 11 years, 12 years, and I still haven't found one. Travis Kelce once did score more than 100 more points than tight end 2. I think that was 3 years ago, but not quite the same gap as we're seeing this year. It might be a record for all we know. Tight end 1 versus tight end 2. Trey McBride just destroying the field this year. So
it's why he was in the discussion to be the fantasy MVP. He was just that good.
Yeah. And Kyle Pitts, by the way, was tight end 2, which is pretty amazing. Not per game, but overall. Okay. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. This has been FFT Express. We will talk to you next time on Fantasy Football Today. See ya.